We are so fortunate today to have two friends who are brought together by a very unique experience of organ donation. We have the donor, Scott Pachuki, and the recipient, Donald Sheehan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Really important story, really good story. Obviously, if you donated to him and he's not your relative, he's your friend. So how did this friendship start?
Donald and I have been friends for about 15 or 16 years. He used to work for me at a little company on the South Shore called WearGuard.
And I worked there with you also in the 80s and 90s.
That's right.
Yeah.
He used to be my boss. Yeah, so Donald used to work for me in the call center. We very quickly realized that we were going to be friends.
Yep.
You know, he's just got that great personality, somebody that you want to know, somebody you want to be around.
Yep.
So we started hanging out outside of work and became good friends.
Okay.
And we've been friends for
ever since.
Okay.
When did you first find out that you had a problem with your kidneys?
Back in the summer of 1999.
Long time ago.
Long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually away at a theater festival, and I woke up one morning and literally just my entire body was swollen.
Wow.
So I first went to a hospital up in North Adams, and they said, "Oh, it's probably from the heat, that type of thing. You're okay."
Yeah.
But things were actually getting a little bit worse. So
Okay.
they did some more blood work and said, "We're going to send you home, and we're going to send you into a nephrologist in Boston because we feel it's probably something to do with your kidneys."
Okay.
Yeah.
So you then went to Boston.
Yep. I then went to Boston and they biopsied it, and they indicated that it was a condition called glomerulonephritis.
Which means what?
It's a rare condition. Essentially what it means is that something, normally the kidney is supposed to absorb the protein in your system. Something got at the walls of my kidneys and caused holes so that the protein that was typically supposed to be absorbed was leaking out into my system, and that's what was causing the swelling.
Okay. So in order to remedy this, what do they do?
Well, they always tell me that a transplant might be a reality. Sometimes it reverses itself, but more often than not, it does not.
Okay.
So for about 16 years, I was good with medications. And basically the type of medication that they give you is what they give you when you have a transplant.
Okay.
They essentially try to treat it with anti-rejection immunosuppressant medications.
Okay. So this kept it in check for a while.
It did.
When did it get to the point where you realized this is not going to work anymore?
It was probably about a year and a half ago when my primary care physician indicated that my creatinine levels, which are your kidney function levels,
Right.
were continuing to rise and rise on a fairly consistent basis.
Okay.
So at that point, we didn't do much else then, but we continued to watch it.
Yep.
The creatinine levels became critical enough that ultimately in November of last year, I went on to dialysis.
Okay.
In June of last year, I had a consultation with the transplant clinic at Mass General,
Yep.
and at that point was put onto a donor list.
Okay. Which you can wait for years for a donor.
You can.
So you also did something on your own.
I did. So the transplant clinic that I met with recommended highly that I reach out via social media.
Okay.
So I went on to Facebook. I initially started out with a specific group of friends, people that were more close to me, because
Sure.
at that time I didn't feel quite comfortable sort of putting it
Yes.
en
out there.
masse, if
Yeah.
you will.
Yeah.
And there were some people that immediately donated, got tested rather,
Right.
but were not a
Yep.
good match for
Yep.
one reason or another. So then I put it out on a larger scale on Facebook, and I would say there were probably about 12 people
Okay.
that ended up being tested.
Okay. And dear Scott was one of them.
He
So you
was.
saw this on Facebook and
I did see it on Facebook, but of course, being friends, we had been talking about it all along anyways, and I was determined I was going to get tested
you were going to
anyways.
get tested.
Yeah.
And you got tested.
I got
Tell
tested.
me about that process.
Testing process is quite extensive, actually.
It's not just drawing blood. Oh, you're a match.
That's
No.
what I thought.
Yeah.
But no, I met with the transplant team at Mass General on 3 separate occasions in January, March, and May of
Yeah.
this year. And through a series of EKGs and blood tests and MRIs, and they determined that I was a good match for him.
Great. which must have made you really happy.
Oh yeah,
It's a friend.
it was amazing
Yeah,
news.
like wow,
Yeah.
from heaven. So you ended up you were fine. You were going to be the one that was going to be able to give one of your kidneys to your dear friend Donald. And this happened eventually 6 weeks ago today.
6 weeks ago today, July 19th.
Amazing. And the surgery went as planned.
It did.
There were no complications.
No,
Yeah. And Mass General did the work.
they did.
Yeah?
And they did an amazing, yeah, the transplant unit there was really amazing. The
Yeah.
surgeons as well as the nurses and
Yeah.
the entire staff.
Couldn't
were
say
really
enough
great.
good about them.
Yeah.
Okay. You'd mentioned to me earlier about this swap program. In case you weren't a good match for him, what does swap mean?
I'll do my best to explain it without confusing you.
Okay.
So Donald needs a kidney.
Yep.
I'm willing to donate.
Okay.
If I was not a match for him,
Yep.
then there might be somebody else out there who needs a kidney, and they have a friend
are.
who also doesn't match.
Okay.
But if their friend matched Donald and I matched their friend, then I would give them my kidney and they would give
So it's
Donald
almost an
theirs.
agreement, a four-way
Yeah.
swap agreement.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. And that's out there for the whole world
Yep.
to use.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's terrific. Now, if people want to get more information about this before we go into what you're doing next with your life,
Sure.
they can go to 3 different websites that you've given us: www.kidney.org, organdonor.gov, and massgeneral.org/transplant. And those are 3 for information
Correct.
on this.
Absolutely, yeah.
You are, and we're going to be following you in the future, Donald, because tell me about what you're doing in Pembroke.
So I've had a theater company since '01 called True Rep Theater, and we've just decided to make our new home in Pembroke.
Which is great.
Yeah. Yep.
And you have an upcoming fundraiser on the 10th.
We do, yeah. We have a fundraiser at the Bethel Chapel over on Washington Street in Pembroke.
Yeah.
You know, there'll be
Yeah.
raffling off, different donations that we received. Probably meet some of our cast for our first show.
Great.
And also a great opportunity to learn more about the company.
Right. And you are now in great shape to be able to run this because of your dear friend Scott.
I am, absolutely.
And knowing you, I'm not surprised that you did this. And I wish there were more people in the world that would do things like this for each other, because it's a great story and we're so happy to have had you here. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having
And we'll
us.
follow you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.